Most men are taught, consciously and unconsciously, that strength must be visible in order to be valid, that confidence must be announced through posture, tone, or dominance, and that masculinity requires constant external proof. From an early age, this conditioning creates a narrow and predictable behavioral landscape. Within this landscape, people learn to read one another quickly because most emotional responses follow familiar scripts. Escalation when challenged, defensiveness when exposed, justification when questioned, confrontation when threatened, or withdrawal when overwhelmed. These patterns provide social certainty. They allow others to anticipate outcomes, regulate their own responses, and feel psychologically oriented within an interaction. The Sigma male does not fit cleanly into this structure, not because he rejects society or seeks to position himself above it, but because his internal reference point is not socially constructed. His actions arise from internal alignment rather than external pressure, expectation, or validation. This is where discomfort begins. Human psychology depends heavily on feedback loops. When someone does not provide expected emotional signals, the brain struggles to categorize them. The absence of familiar cues disrupts prediction, and prediction is central to psychological safety. Ambiguity triggers vigilance. What cannot be read cannot be easily managed. What cannot be managed is often interpreted as a potential threat, even when no harm is present. The Sigma male's presence introduces uncertainty into systems that rely on emotional predictability for balance. He does not mirror anxiety, does not escalate when provoked, and does not over-clarify his intentions to soothe others. This is not calculated detachment. It is the byproduct of an internal locus of control. He's guided by internal coherence rather than social calibration. He does not intend to unsettle others, nor does he seek to intimidate. He simply does not adjust his internal state to regulate the emotional comfort of those around him. This quiet refusal, often unconscious, creates a subtle power imbalance. Those accustomed to influencing behavior through emotional cues experience this as unease, tension, or quiet apprehension. The discomfort does not arise from aggression, but from independence. What follows are 6 behaviors that produce this effect unintentionally, not as strategies or performances, but as natural consequences of psychological self-sovereignty. Point 1, they remain emotionally still when provoked. Emotional provocation is one of the oldest and most instinctive social tools in human interaction. It is often deployed unconsciously, not as a calculated strategy, but as a reflex meant to test boundaries, assert dominance, relieve inner insecurity, or extract reassurance from others. In most cases, it works precisely because most people respond automatically. They defend themselves, counterattack, over-explain, justify their position, or emotionally withdraw. Each of these reactions completes the emotional loop. It confirms to the provocateur that their stimulus landed, that they successfully influenced the internal state of the other person. Balance is restored, but at the cost of psychological leverage. The Sigma male disrupts this entire mechanism by refusing to participate in the cycle. When criticized, mocked, challenged, or subtly undermined, his internal state does not immediately shift. There's no rush to respond, no visible spike in emotion. He listens, he observes. He allows the emotional charge to move through the environment without absorbing it into his nervous system. This is not emotional suppression, nor is it indifference. It is emotional regulation in its most refined form. From a psychological perspective, this creates dissonance in the person attempting the provocation. The expected reaction never arrives. Without emotional feedback, the other person's nervous system remains activated, unsettled, and searching for closure. Over time, this unresolved tension is often misinterpreted as superiority, silent judgment, or hidden aggression, even though none of these are present. The Sigma male is simply unavailable for emotional manipulation. His nervous system is self-contained and internally regulated. This self-containment communicates strength at a biological level. Calmness under pressure signals to the human brain that the individual does not perceive a threat. And humans instinctively become uneasy around those who remain calm in situations where fear, defensiveness, or agitation are expected. The Sigma male neither escalates nor retreats. He stays centered, grounded, and internally sovereign. This neutrality removes leverage from the interaction and leaves others alone with their own emotional output, which is deeply uncomfortable for those who rely on reaction to feel control. Point 2. They do not explain themselves. Explanation is often mistaken for clarity, but psychologically it is more often a quiet request for acceptance. When people explain themselves excessively, they are not merely sharing logic. They are managing perception. They are attempting to soften judgment, preempt criticism, or regain a sense of social safety. Explanation becomes a form of negotiation, a way to remain emotionally aligned with the group. The Sigma male does not operate from this psychological posture. His decisions are formed internally through private evaluation rather than collective reassurance. Once a decision is made, it is already settled within him. Because of this, he does not feel compelled to narrate his reasoning unless practical coordination genuinely requires it. He understands intuitively or through experience that not every choice needs to be socially processed. This refusal to over-explain quietly disrupts expectations. Many people are accustomed to explanation as an entry point, a place where they can question, challenge, persuade, guilt, or emotionally influence outcomes. When an explanation is offered, it creates conversational leverage. When it is withheld, that leverage disappears. There is nothing to debate, nothing to reinterpret, nothing to pull apart. The Sigma male's silence is often misread as coldness or dismissal, but psychologically it is neither. It is self-authorization. He does not place his decisions into the social arena for approval, because he does not experience approval as a prerequisite for action. This creates unease in others, not because they are being disrespected, but because their usual tools no longer function. The illusion of influence collapses. People are left facing a boundary that does not argue, defend, or explain itself. That boundary feels immovable. The absence of justification signals inner certainty, and certainty that does not seek reinforcement appears unshakable. From an evolutionary and psychological standpoint, humans are instinctively wary of individuals who do not require validation, because such individuals cannot be easily steered through praise, guilt, fear of exclusion, or social pressure. They are not reactive to emotional incentives. The Sigma male's calm refusal to explain communicates something deeper than confidence. It communicates internal closure. The decision is complete. There is no open loop. And where there is no open loop, there is no entry point for control. This is why his silence carries weight. It is not loud authority, but quiet finality. It says, without words, this has already been decided. And the human psyche recognizes that statement as power. Point 3, they appear unmoved by social hierarchies. Social hierarchies quietly organize nearly every aspect of human interaction. Titles, roles, popularity, credentials, and perceived authority act as shortcuts, allowing people to quickly determine who should lead, who should follow, and how much psychological weight another person's opinion should carry. Most individuals absorb these hierarchies early in life and carry them unconsciously into adulthood, adjusting their tone, posture, and self-expression based on where they believe they stand. The Sigma male recognizes these structures clearly, but he does not internalize them. He sees hierarchy as a social tool, not as a measure of human worth. As a result, he does not defer automatically, nor does he challenge authority out of insecurity or ego. His responses are measured, situational, and grounded in observation rather than assumption. He treats people according to their behavior, consistency, and character, not according to rank or label. This alone creates tension because many identities are built almost entirely on position. When someone's status fails to produce the expected emotional reaction, fear, admiration, compliance, or submission, it creates a subtle psychological rupture. The Sigma male does not compete for dominance, nor does he submit for approval. He stands adjacent to the hierarchy rather than inside it, interacting when necessary, but remaining internally untouched. Psychologically, this is deeply unsettling to those who rely on hierarchy for validation. Social structures function not because they are inherently real, but because people agree to them emotionally and reinforce them through behavior. When someone disengages internally while remaining outwardly calm, the structure loses its power in that moment. The Sigma male's neutrality communicates something rare and disarming. Status neither impresses him nor intimidates him. This is often misread as arrogance, defiance, or coldness, but it is none of these. It is independence of valuation. He does not need to feel superior to feel stable, and he does not accept feeling inferior to remain safe. He stays centered within himself, guided by internal standards rather than external rankings. For those who depend on hierarchy to feel secure, this calm equality feels like a rejection of the social order itself. That perceived rejection triggers anxiety, resentment, and sometimes hostility, not because the Sigma male attacks the system, but because his presence quietly exposes how fragile it really is. Point 4, they are comfortable with extended silence. Silence is revealing because it strips away distraction and removes the noise people use to avoid themselves. When words disappear, awareness is forced to the surface. Most people experience silence not as peace, but as pressure. It creates a subtle tension in the mind, a feeling that something must be done to restore balance. This is why so many rush to fill quiet moments with unnecessary explanations, jokes, opinions, or emotional disclosures. They are not communicating, they are relieving discomfort. The Sigma male, however, does not experience silence as something that needs to be fixed. He remains present without performing, without reaching outward for reassurance, and without feeling compelled to shape the moment. This alone alters conversational dynamics almost immediately. In the absence of his verbal input, the other person becomes more aware of themselves. Their posture shifts. Their thoughts accelerate. They begin speaking more than intended, revealing opinions, insecurities, or motivations they would normally keep guarded. Silence subtly hands them the mirror. The Sigma male listens without interruption or visible reaction. He does not nod excessively, reassure, or challenge. This lack of feedback creates the impression of scrutiny, even when none is intended. Humans are deeply uncomfortable being observed without validation. When feedback disappears, the mind turns inward, searching for cues, judging itself, and replaying its own words in real time. Silence removes the social padding that normally softens interaction and forces introspection to occur. The Sigma male's comfort in this space signals something rare: self-sufficiency. He does not require external stimulation, approval, or constant exchange to regulate his emotional state. His nervous system remains steady without input. This independence unsettles those who rely on interaction to distract from their internal noise. Around him, silence often feels heavier, not because he is threatening, but because the quiet exposes what others have been avoiding. In that stillness, the Sigma male does nothing extraordinary. He simply remains grounded. Yet that grounded presence becomes revealing, not of him, but of everyone else. Point 5, they exit situations without drama or closure. Many people unconsciously use conflict as a tool for emotional resolution. Arguments, explanations, apologies, long discussions, and even dramatic confrontations serve a psychological purpose. They create narrative closure. They allow the mind to label an ending, assign blame, extract meaning, and finally move on. The Sigma male does not operate within this framework. When a situation, relationship, or environment no longer aligns with his internal values, he disengages quietly. He does not announce his withdrawal. He does not explain himself in detail. He does not argue his position or seek validation for his decision. He simply removes his presence. This absence of emotional resolution is deeply unsettling to those who are conditioned to negotiate boundaries through conversation and conflict. The human mind is wired to search for patterns and explanations. When none are given, it loops endlessly. People replay conversations, scrutinize past interactions, search for hidden signals, and invent meanings that may not exist. Psychologically, unresolved endings create more distress than direct rejection, because rejection still provides information. Silence provides none. The Sigma male's quiet exit communicates finality without hostility. It sends a clear signal that his boundaries are internal, firm, and non-negotiable. There is no debate, because the decision was never external to begin with. To those accustomed to emotional bargaining, this can feel cold, dismissive, or even cruel. In reality, it is clarity without performance. The Sigma male does not weaponize emotion, nor does he seek to teach lessons through conflict. He understands that prolonged engagement drains energy and creates unnecessary psychological entanglement. His withdrawal is not meant to provoke regret or confusion, though it often does. It is not punishment, manipulation, or avoidance. It is alignment. He chooses internal coherence over external validation. By refusing to participate in emotional theatrics, he denies others the closure they expect, forcing them to confront their own dependency on explanation and reassurance. This is why his absence lingers so powerfully in the minds of others. There was no final argument to dissect, no apology to accept, no dramatic ending to file away. There is only silence and distance, which the mind finds intolerable. Yet for the Sigma male, this silence is peaceful. It reflects a deep understanding that not every ending requires words, and not every boundary needs to be defended. His quiet departure is simply the natural consequence of self-respect in motion. Point 6, they appear internally complete. Perhaps the most unsettling trait of all is internal completeness. a quiet and often misunderstood state of being that the Sigma male embodies without announcement or performance. He does not appear to need emotional reassurance, social validation, or constant engagement to feel anchored in himself. He enjoys connection, values meaningful exchange, and can appreciate companionship deeply. Yet he is not dependent on it for his sense of worth or stability. This distinction is subtle but profound. In many social and relational structures, power is built on exchange, attention for approval, affection for reassurance, and presence for influence. When someone participates in this system, they become predictable. When someone does not, the system destabilizes. The Sigma male's self-sufficiency quietly disrupts these dynamics because there is nothing to bargain with. His fulfillment is generated internally, drawn from personal standards, purpose-driven living, and disciplined self-respect, rather than external affirmation. This form of completeness is rare, not because it is unattainable, but because it requires prolonged solitude, self-examination, and the courage to detach from social dependency. Humans are biologically and psychologically attuned to signals of need. We read them instinctively in tone, behavior, posture, and emotional reactions. When we encounter someone who does not emit these signals, the nervous system does not relax, it becomes alert. The absence of need creates uncertainty. The Sigma male does not chase, does not cling, and does not demand to be understood. He does not explain himself excessively or attempt to manage how he is perceived. He stands whole within himself, unmoved by approval and unthreatened by misunderstanding. To many, this posture is unsettling because it cannot be easily categorized. It is often misinterpreted as coldness, superiority, or emotional distance, when in reality it is autonomy in its purest form. He is not withdrawn from others, he is simply not fused to them. This independence challenges those who unconsciously rely on influence, emotional leverage, or validation loops to feel secure. People fear what they cannot influence, not out of malice, but out of psychological self-protection. Influence provides predictability, and predictability feels safe. Internal completeness removes that predictability. It is influence-proof, not because it resists others, but because it does not require anything from them. The Sigma male's presence quietly communicates a deeper truth. When a person becomes internally whole, external forces lose their grip. This does not make him powerful by domination, but by freedom, and freedom, when witnessed up close, can be deeply unsettling to those who have never cultivated it within themselves. The Sigma male does not cultivate fear, nor does he seek to unsettle others through dominance or control. What he cultivates instead is self-mastery, an inner discipline that frees him from emotional dependency on external approval. The discomfort people experience in his presence does not come from aggression, intimidation, or manipulation, but from the absence of need. His silence is not passive, it is deliberate. His stillness is not emptiness, it is containment. By remaining self-possessed, he unintentionally exposes the invisible psychological habits that govern most social interactions. Around him, people become aware of how often they speak to be validated, perform to be accepted, or attempt to steer others for reassurance. The Sigma male does not point this out, judge it, or challenge it directly. He simply refuses to participate in these unconscious exchanges. In doing so, he becomes a mirror rather than an actor in the social dynamic. What unsettles others is not who he is, but what they recognize about themselves in his presence. That quiet recognition lingers long after he is gone.